Wow, another momentous time in the history of the Legends Kraal. We have an incredible footballer, a man who has left people behind chasing shadows on the soccer field. How are you, brother man?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for
Dan
the.
Klate,
Thank you.
you were an incredible footballer in your time.
Yep. Yeah, it's all about enjoying it and having a career that you love. The passion for football was always there. I could have actually become a cricket player, but I decided that I'm choosing football. I think my mom is still a little bit, disappointed that I didn't choose cricket. But yeah, the passion for soccer was way more.
Being born and brought up in the dusty streets of Galvandale,
Yeah.
did you ever imagine that you'll climb these heights you've climbed?
I think if you dream big, but you only realize it afterwards. So while I was going through it's a long journey. It was a long journey that started. I think I was 8 years old when I started playing football for Glenville Celtic, and I grew up at Glenville for most of my junior football life until I moved to School of Excellence in the year 2000. So I started in 1993 actually to play for Glenville Celtic. And then I moved to the School of Excellence in 2000. I was in grade 10 from Galvandale High School. So my primary school was at Donkin Primary School. I stayed right opposite, and I spent a lot of time in the schoolyard, even after school, jumped the fence and we'll use the soccer field and the netball courts, to play soccer and cricket and, so.
Naughty boys.
No, yeah, and I won't say naughty boys. I think if we look at things this day and age, I think that's what's missing at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're always here on the phones. So I think the kids of today probably missed out on a generation of growing up in the streets, playing football and soccer, and that's probably the foundation of any development.
There's a saying in English that behind every successful man, there's a woman. Your mother has been a pillar of strength. She's been the epicenter of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my granny firstly.
Wow.
I was a granny's boy growing up, and until she passed on when I just completed matric. So, and then my mother, obviously, I've been close with my mother for a very long time. And the one thing I know about my mother, that it's for a firstborn son and a mother, that unconditional love is always going to be there. So whatever I achieve in life, it's happiness, and whatever negative things I go through, she'll be the person to lift me up and pick me up when I need some picking up.
Yeah. Playing soccer instead of cricket, you had people who inspired you to play both
Yes.
ball sports.
Yes.
In that area during that time, the greats who were there, Daine Jordan, did he have any influence in you?
I think it was my time was
Maxwell?
probably after. I think Mr. Dr. General Don them has then moved on to higher levels, and those are the levels that everybody wants to attain. So I think I'm from very humble beginnings. There was a teacher, Mr. Gordon Kemp. He's very well known, also a former legend player that played football back in the day, in the apartheid days, basically. So I understand the history of football and how it was back in the day, but I then came and started playing when it was probably post apartheid, and that was growing up. 1994 obviously came and we got reinstated back into international football. The Nations Cup we won in 1995, and those are all the things that you've witnessed as a young boy. Watching the World Cup firstly in 1990 with Diego Maradona playing. And then it became
the hand of God.
The hand of God, and then
when he scored that goal against England.
And then the scandal that followed him, and because a lot of times with fame over time, it becomes difficult to maintain and not be as normal as possible. So you end up doing things you're in environments that you shouldn't be in because of who you are.
Yeah.
But it's all about trying to witness all of that growing up, and then 1994 World Cup, and then Diego Maradona can't play in the 1994 World Cup. He failed the drug test, and those are the things that should have been avoided. But yeah, growing up like that, and this is probably the part that I want to go, and watching Chiefs and Pirates at Soweto Derby at the old FNB Stadium with Zimmer Mazonda commentating. So yeah,
Coach, you could do
yeah,
that.
I've got an understanding
guys.
of the game and the history of the game, and I invested myself into the game, and I still do, and the returns on the investment is amazing. You know what, if you put everything into something that you're really passionate about, it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but I think for the most part it's about, you know, the challenges that it's ahead, and to be on that level and stay on that level for as long as I did was probably one of my best achievements.
It's true. Also the saying that nothing great in the world has been achieved without passion.
No, definitely.
I can
There's
see
so
the
many
passion
sayings.
you have
Yeah,
for the
I love
sport
books. I
and-
love reading. So,
Yes.
it
and
helps.
you love family.
Yes, we
Your
do
mother
physical.
turned 60. What year was it?
Yeah,
tell her I say happy birthday. Belated
Yes,
happy birthday
we had a
to your mother.
60th birthday 2 years ago.
How was it? How was it?
Yeah,
You
she's
were the-
very.
Ooh.
You know, my mother is very. I remember I actually drove past my youngest brother, past the place that we had a 50th in, and that was about 12 years ago. So
Yeah.
2010. It's actually 2010, probably going back way back to those years. You know, so she's very quiet, very humble. Nobody knows about her life, and I got that a lot from her. You know, that privacy is obviously one of the most important things, especially when it comes to your private life. So I've never really been in stories outside of football that's negative, because I understood that I always want to be on the back pages, because if you flip it over, that's where all the sport is, and that's where if I pick up a newspaper, I turn it around before I even look at the front.
You go to the sports side.
You go to the sports
Right
section
at
at
the
the back,
back.
right at the back. Yeah, that's the back page.
Leave the front
the
page.
front page is for scandals.
So true. You know, you've exceeded all expectations,
Yep.
considering where you were born and brought up.
Yeah, where I'm from, there's so many talented players that's from that area. Garnet Kruger, Ashwell Prince, Robin Peterson, from the northern areas, Wayne Parnell. I mean, there's been amazing cricketers that have come through the systems, and specifically Galvindale. I don't know this. I don't know what it is about Galvindale.
That's the water.
Yeah, Rio van Heerden was. Rio van Heerden as well. He ended up playing for Blackburn. We literally grew up together. We used to go to school together. We used to walk to school together. You know, and we played in the street together. I actually admired El Rio because he was a little bit 2 years older than me, but it was always his behavior was always so exemplary, because he was so intelligent in schoolwork, never lacked. And you know, when you have people next to you like that's on the same path as you, it always argues well. So that beginning stages of life, who you spend time with becomes important. And fortunately for me, I had a guy like him that I could spend a lot of time with and progress with, and seeing him actually live the dream in Europe was fantastic, you know, because he represented all of us, you know, and whenever I went out on the field, I know where I come from and I'm representing that people. So, you know, when one day you leave a legacy and you come back into the place when everybody sees you, they're so happy that you're still coming there.
Do you still go back to Galvindale?
I spend a lot of time in Galvindale.
Galvindale.
I think I spend the most time when I'm in Port Elizabeth in Galvindale.
Yeah, when I look at Galvindale, immediately in my brain comes New Brighton.
Yes.
I always equate Galvindale
Yeah,
and New
yeah.
Brighton.
Yes.
And if you look at the housing, they look like New
Similar,
Brighton.
yes.
Similar to
Yes.
New Brighton.
Yes.
And this,
Yeah, we grew up. We grew up in. There was a coach. He's late today. He used to open all the doors when we used to come the northern areas team playing against Nepfa and Motherwell and you know all the LFAs. I mean, I had amazing people that used
Toto.
to, Pratoto. There we go.
Toto.
Coach,
They call him Mangwane.
listen, when I used to get into New Brighton when we used to come play friendly matches or Eastern Province or the Eastern Province, so that's when everybody amalgamates. You know, you meet different people from different LFAs, and I think the bond between New Brighton and Galvindale has always been there because it's a walk across over
It's
from
just
Goa
over
Park.
the...
And
you know?
I grew up playing with a lot of them, and there's a lot of talent there. You know, I absolutely I loved working at Chipper's Disky setup because I had an understanding of how to amalgamate. You know, if we have the best talented players from different areas in one team, they do so well, and I did so well with Chipper United with the youngsters. You know, and I had a mixed team from all over. You know, the Asanele Bonanis that we see now in the first team, he was in matric when I had him. You know, and Tulani Mini as well. When I started at Chippa, he was in matric. Of you and Kokoza, same thing. He was in matric. Diego Paulus, Ronaldo Marman. all these boys that's today still playing in the PSL and still affiliated to professional setup and teams. I'm really, really proud of all of them because of the work we put in behind the scenes back then with the Chippa Diski team and how well they did sustain their careers, and eventually I took the job at Chippa and I promoted, or I purely took the job because I wanted to promote all of them because I could control it. And I think it was very, very good. And it's nice for me to see that they are still sustaining their careers, and whatever they've been taught, they come out of good hands as well. Sundowns in Sweden as well. You know what I mean? There's people there that's hidden. That's producing
Hidden talent.
That's producing the hidden talent.
Yeah.
But for people like myself and Coach Bruce July, we're very big on talent identification. And if you see there's someone special, our aim is always to take that little boy and try and give him a life, because I know how nice it is to go and play football, something you're passionate, and make a difference in your family's life, and for your community as well. So definitely I think a lot has to do, a lot of what I've achieved has to do with the values and models that I grew up, and everybody. There's so many people that played a part, but of course the pillars is going to be my immediate family, like my mom and my granny and all my aunts, all my cousins that grew up with me. So yeah, that's basically how I live today. Just try and spend as much time with them as possible, while I can, while I do coaching and into coaching. And it's going to be a massive process again in the coaching space. I have a long time per se. It's a longer career than what a player's career is. And it's just about the process again, like I was a player in the process, I'm a coach in the process again. And I have ambitions and aims, you want to coach Pirates one day, so you got to reach for those things. And and that's just working towards it and trying to equip myself. I think football-wise, of course, and then obviously the education that goes with coaching. What comes with coaching is fantastic, because the tactics is probably the easier side. What's more challenging is obviously, being responsible for a group of players and sending and obviously teaching them to everybody work in one direction. And that's probably one of the hardest tasks. But for the most part, if they say the bigger squad you have, the more problems. The smaller your squad, the less problems. So yeah, we try and lessen the problems where we can.
Yeah. If I can take you back as a young boy, 8 years or 12 years, or under 12 or under 13, when that scouting eye of Toto Mangwane saw you, how just if you can give him a compliment, and in guiding you, and putting the right footsteps for you to follow, how would you?
I think he was probably one of, like I say, he used to open all the gates whenever we used to come into the location, and I'm there with the only thing I used to experience him having a smile on his face and obviously motivating and how talented we are. But people like that you never forget. I had the honor at one of the engine tournaments at Glenville Celtic when it was there a couple of years ago. I had the honor of representing one of my playing shirts to him because of the impact that he had on me at grassroots football. Always in the Eastern Province team, always, and sometimes when you're not in the room, people like that will vouch for you. So I think, in a nutshell, I think he was an extraordinary human being. And that's why I'm into the game, because I want to serve the game back, what the game has served me. And there's too little servants left in the game, actually. There's a lot of takers that coming into the game. Little servants left. And, there was a lot of servants back in the day.
A lot of selfless people.
That didn't get the money. There's so much money in the game now, but, maybe the money is going into the wrong hands at certain times.
It's not me who said that.
Yeah, I'm understanding. I think I come from all of it, and
Yeah.
I've studied the game and do my research, and
If you look at, it's talking about your mother, I don't want to touch a Ronev.
Yeah.
You find out you leave home. It's the females or your mother, your grandmother looks after you. If you look at what's happening in New Brighton and look what's happening in Galvandale, would you think children without fathers contribute to, most probably, the way things are today?
Yeah. I think it's a big topic. I think it's probably a vicious cycle that's happening within the communities, and not to make any excuses for it, but it's it's a cycle that I was fortunate enough to get out of PE and go and experience life. I traveled a lot with football over around the globe, so you tend to see that there's life out there. Certain things that's happening in our communities is more of people don't know what's out there. They only know this way of life, and I can't say blame them, but to a certain degree, there's certain things that back in the day that contributed to where we are today, and it's just degrading all the time, So if anybody can get out of it, then a good thing. So that's the aim, and my aim is always just one at a time. If you can help one kid at a time to get out of it and not become a gangster, because what other options do they have where they're from? It's either you're going to play sport, you're going to be good in education, and then that's the negative side of the gangsterism and the wrongful things that happens, the robberies, and you become basically a criminal within the system, and that system just develops.
On the vicious system.
And like you're saying, the fathers obviously disappear. The fathers are in jail, most of them, some of them. Not to judge anybody, but that's the reality of where I'm from and what they're dealing with, and I have an understanding of it, and that's why, to be a father is an absolute blessing, and you got to look back and leave a legacy for your kids for how long you have them. And I can't imagine not being part of their lives, and how some fathers don't want to be part of their children's lives is beyond me, I think. But as a father, I'll continuously make an effort to just be there,
Talking about fatherhood, I've been privileged to be Zach's father. Zach and my son, same school,
yes,
Grey High,
yes.
but he left us.
Yeah.
You know that song by Harold Melville and the Blue Notes, "Don't leave me this way,
Yeah.
I can't survive." So Zach left us and went
Yes.
to Vic
You went to VP, soccer, the soccer ball.
because of soccer.
Yeah, you wanted to play soccer. Sometimes, and that's where fatherhood probably comes in, it's where parenting comes in general. It's realizing that the space that he's in at Grey is a fantastic school.
It is,
but at some point he was just
frustrated.
He was,
and wanted to follow in his
got
father's
friends.
footsteps.
Yeah, he's got friends, and football makes him feel a certain way. He didn't play any sport at Grey High because he didn't have interest in anything else but soccer. So that kind of lacked in his life, and I could notice it. So it was important, for him to. He's so happy now. It's over 6 months later that he's moved. His school results is improving tremendously, and he's a much happier child at the moment because he gets to play. And I was fortunate enough on Friday to watch one of his matches, playing for the school at VP.
And very soon he's going to turn 17.
Very soon, Hey, they're growing so fast. They're really growing fast. But look, I'm proud of them. I get a lot of compliments. They've got a lot of mothers and fathers because I'm away a lot.
Yes.
So they've got a lot of mothers and fathers, and the compliments I get about them being gentlemen is, that's probably
it's a good boy.
That's probably one of the proudest, honest someone can compliment you can give me if you're telling me that you've got really nice gentlemen like boys, and not one person or two person, but all the people that they're friends and their mothers, and going to their houses and having friends over, and that's about building it. And they're good boys generally.
Alex is not frustrated. His sibling has moved to another school?
Not at all. Alex does high jump. Alex plays hockey. Alex plays rugby.
Wow.
So Alex is enjoying himself at Grey still. It's all up to them. It's their schooling careers. They're going to go through it. My duty as a father is just to be there and support whatever and advise them accordingly. So I won't advise them the wrong ways or lead them in the wrong to the wrong things. I think crucial times they also need to let them learn about things. And let them be, and let them make their mistakes. And we can all learn from that. But for the most part, I think generally, Alex is also. He's very sporty. Alex thinks he's a better coach than me, though.
So he sit on television and say that you're not supposed to have done that.
Yeah, he literally told me that a couple
Very
of years.
analytical.
I was coaching him at under 13, and he literally told me, Dad, I think I'm a better coach than you. I'm like, well, if you feel that way, by all means, go for it.
You had somebody else also who was influential in your life, Zola. Just talk about him. The impact he had as a Bafana Bafana, a manager, and also as a guiding force in your life.
I think, there's so many, like I said, going back to junior football, there's so many. There's Bralifi that used to be kit manager. He's still at Safa today, all the people working together back then, those are servants of the game, isn't it? We're talking about servants of the game. Those are the servants of the game, and They serve the country, the national teams, as team managers. They sacrifice their time and their effort, and they were so passionate about it. So those type of people are rare in the game today. Like I'm saying, I can probably see it because they're no longer around, and it's probably a different generation, a different era of football at the moment. But I think in that era there was people that really put the game above themselves. More selfless people that's in the game to contribute towards the game. And he's a fantastic human being, and
Yeah, he spoke
very
very
helpful.
well about you.
Yeah, no, very helpful.
I
Very
heard
helpful
him on
people.
radio one. It was 2 years or 3 years ago.
Yes.
Talked about some of the lighties he looked after, and
Yeah.
he mentioned your name.
Yeah,
and then
definitely,
as I was
yes.
about to do this interview, I just
Remember, yeah.
tapped in my subconscious and
Yes.
say, "Oh, Zola Junior did something."
Yes,
You
no,
know, to make
100%.
sure that
He's
this guy
massive
reaches the
contribution.
highest heights.
Yeah, not only for me, but the massive contribution through the football fraternity.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Fast forward, you leave the tournaments, township tournaments, NEFA, and all that stuff. You started at Vet West.
No, I started SuperSport United.
SuperSport.
Yeah, I started School of Excellence.
At School of Excellence, SuperSport.
Yeah, and then SuperSport United signed me in my matric year for the following year when I completed matric.
And your man there was Pitso Musiman.
Because Pitso Masimane was the head coach, Cornelia Koppo was the under 19 coach, where I joined into. But I would have lots of sessions with the first team until I spent a year at the Village of Dreams at SuperSports Academy, and then I got promoted fully. I moved to Atteridgeville actually. I used to stay with the family in Atteridgeville.
Okay.
Staying in a township again, I fitted in. Because at the School of Excellence,
it's in your skin.
We're 80 boys from all over South Africa, different villages, different townships, different suburbs, so people come from different areas. And when you're in environments like that, at the beginning it was difficult. I think it was a brave decision from my mom to let me go in the first place at 14 years old to a boarding school in Johannesburg. So that was a massive thing. In the first year,
it's a different atmosphere. The food is different in Joburg. You ate mkhodi, umkhodu.
I learned about all of those things at the school, because if you're not going to eat it, you're going to go sleep hungry.
You're hungry. They come with a different cuisine.
No, it was difficult. The first year to adjust into that lifestyle was difficult. But I think as time went on, I now understand how difficult it was and why, and going through that process. But I wouldn't change anything. I would not change anything about that process of joining SuperSport and getting to work with Coach Pitso Mosimane, play my first cup final at 19 years old, against Chiefs at Bloemfontein, coming on after halftime. So I think those are memories that's vividly with a nervous little boy that was put in and believed in by coaches like Coach Pitso Mosimane. It's, I think, Thomas Marigaga, the late Thomas Marigaga as well. So yeah, I come from the generation of Themba Mnguni, Peter Kobani, and those, Ricardo Katsa, Grant Johnson was still goalkeeper back then. Calvin Marlin, also from P. Yeah, but so I was rubbing shoulders with guys like that at a very, very young age, and those were good mentors to me as well. So I then grew up in the game with good values because I had good people around me.
Having Pitso also as another father figure in your life, I believe he gave you some life lessons.
A lot of them to this day still. I often visit him and I sit with him and have conversations about the game, about his experience in the game, because it's a person that I can turn to, because I would like to follow in the footsteps of that. So they become, because Pitso and Coach Gavin is probably two of my best mentors that I have. Those are the two best coaches in the country, and I have access to both of them when I need any advice or any help with whatever I need. And it's good for me, and that's what football is built. It built relationships for a lifetime, and they're very over the family life. The boys, they always ask about them, always interested in the family. So, those are good people that has really, really played an important part in my life. And I'm fortunate to have worked with both of them, won trophies with both of them, and the two of them are the best coaches to date in terms of being successful in South African football. And, who will emulate them, so it's something that I set my sights on, and I'd like to emulate that and become a coach that's, because who's going to be next,
Exactly.
So those are the ambitions and the people that I reach out to and probably want to attain that level.
And then you went to the mighty Buccaneers, Amatambo.
Yeah, no, that's once
You
and
went to the
always.
mighty Buccaneers.
I grew up
And-
supporting Pirates.
Yeah.
I grew up supporting Pirates.
Once a pirate, always a pirate.
They say once and always. Yeah, no, definitely.
How was the reception, this incredible midfielder? Because you played well.
Yeah.
Incredible
I went to
midfielder, can
the-
kick left and right.
Yeah, I went to the derby the other day. We beat Chiefs 3-0. So,
Yeah. Which
could-
team?
look, obviously Pirates beat Chiefs 3-0. So, I'm a Pirate supporter. So it was nice to be there at the stadium,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
playing the game, having played the derby previously, and just to see the joy and the atmosphere on a different side now of just being a supporter.
Just a supporter.
Not being it's really, really good, and I think that move probably changed my life. If I can make an example, you go from 5,000 followers and you sign for Pirates, and then all of a sudden the next month you 200,000 followers.
Yeah.
So that's the magnitude of a move to an institution like that. And for sure, when I met Dr. Ivan Koza at the beginning, when the move to SuperSport, from SuperSport to Pirates, he explained all of that to me and how my life will change if I come over, and how to behave and just advice, like fatherly. Again, you look at the magnitude of people that I was in rooms with, giving me advice and taking the advice in, and ended up doing well at Pirates. I think I couldn't have asked for anything better. If you told me probably 20 years ago, I would have said you're lying.
In your team, you had Tso Vilakazi.
No, but then Cho's left.
Left,
I was with the
okay.
group of Charlie,
Oh, yeah.
Opa Manisa, Roy
Yes.
Mahmood, Salaki Lakhwati was there.
Okay.
Senzo Mayua, the late Senzo Mayua, Munib
May his soul
Josephs.
rest in peace. Yeah.
Munib Josephs, Tulasan Mboyani, Sekholela, Klo Sekholela. So, yeah, the era of the treble, I found Teko Modisi there as well,
Yes.
but he obviously moved to Sundowns at the beginning when I arrived at Pirates. And yeah, I think it was a fruitful stay. A lot of stars in that team when I arrived. I didn't behave like a star either. I respected everybody for who they were. Regardless, I'm coming from winning 3 league titles in a row. I know this is what they want to do because we were competing with him and I was on the opposite side,
Yes.
So with me joining in at Pirates and winning all the trophies successively with him, double trebles and Nedbank Cup later on, 7 trophies in 4.5 years that I was there.
Wow.
I think that was probably one of my best experiences in football.
I was about to ask you, which was your best experience in football? I know you went to SuperSport. You did win trophies. You're a serial winner.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You win everything.
Yeah.
Whatever you touch, it turns to gold. That's why every
Pirates, they
team
call me
wanted
the
you.
lucky charm.
Your Paris lucky charm. Yeah. Which
Yeah,
is incredible.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have had success with all 3 of the clubs that I won trophies with. Coming to Fitz at the back end of my career as well, winning the first league title in 96 years, and having to do it with 3 different teams was a special achievement for me because it was proof that wherever I did go, I did make a difference and I did leave something behind and influenced the winning mentality and the winning culture. And I can be happy about that. But of course, the magnitude of the Pirates move and the support base and the African safari with Pirates going all the way to the Champions League final. Of course, losing against Al Ahly, but part of winning is you got to take knocks some days, and those difficult moments make you a better and stronger player. It's all about the journey, not really the end result, but the journey normally brings the end result.
It's also said that, sport, whether it's soccer or rugby, cricket, athletics, is a school of hard knocks.
Yeah, it's up. Life in general is like up and down the mountains. It's like you're going between mountains. Sometimes you go up, sometimes you go down. You fall, but you just got to keep climbing, And that's probably the mentality of any sports person is probably the biggest thing because sometimes you got to fight with your own confidence, motivate yourself. I'm my worst critic, so nobody's gonna criticize me more than anybody else. If somebody criticizes me, I'm probably by that time I've accepted. Okay. Maybe it's a different opinion, but if you feel that way, then you see it that way, and I see it differently. But it's about overcoming whatever. Solutions to problems is what I'm looking for. I don't want problems to solutions.
Which is good. You're positive. You don't want toxicity in your brain chemistry.
Yeah, no, we don't want that. I think that's detriment of many people. So
Yeah.
we try and stay grounded and try and do as best as we can because the rewards of the game, whatever sport you're doing, sports in general is it's like education. It's very educational, and some people is not going to be academically sound. They might just be excel in the sports field.
Because of your stupendous talent, there you were selected to play for Bafana Bafana.
Yeah.
You wore this jersey.
Yes. Yeah, 2005.
How fulfilling was that?
I was 20 years old when I made my Bafana debut. Coach Stuart Baxter was still the coach, and we then go to
When
America.
you move like this?
Yeah, we then go to America with for the Gold Cup, and it's Bongan Mvete, El Rio van Heerden was in that squad. Ricardo Katza, we had a great squad, and we for 2 weeks we were in America just playing football and traveling around to different cities and different stadiums and football. That's football. That's what football has taught me. It's see the world, don't let the world see you. So I've seen a lot of the world.
You're living your dream.
I love traveling. When I stay away from the airports too much, I start missing the airports. I'm so used to traveling. So yeah, that's what football has given me. Travel the world. In 2001, we went to Portugal, the under-17 national team, and we played against Portugal, Sweden, and Cristiano Ronaldo was also in the Portugal squad back then. I was with Anele, Mkoli, Bullet. He's from here. We grew up into the game together. So those memories, sometimes whenever I see him, he's like, hey, look at Ronaldo, look at what we went, look at where Ronaldo is, and we share the field with him back when we were 16 years old. So those experiences, my 16th birthday was in Portugal actually,
Wow.
in February, so 2001. So yeah, I've experienced life a little bit, and I can be thankful and grateful for what I've experienced over the course of my playing career.
Any matches you played in the continent with Bafana Bafana that you can remember and say that? I remember going with Bafana Bafana. I went to Ouagadougou.
Yeah, we went to Cameroon in 2016. Went to Cameroon, and we then went from Cameroon. It was African Cup of Nations qualifiers, and we went from Cameroon to Ethiopia, and we actually lost both games. And I was part of a team. I had a bit part in the playing in the team in Bafana. I've got one start. It was in 2005 when I was 20, and for the rest of the part, I was just sometimes on the bench, sometimes I would come on. But that particular trip, I didn't play at all. So I was part of the squad, but in both games, I didn't get an opportunity to play. And that was just part of the Bafana setup and how it's a topic that I made peace with after 2010 when I wasn't selected. I was the best player in the PS and I wasn't selected. And I was like, okay, that's
no resentment.
No, I don't have no resentment because I think I could control what I can. I can control performance, winning trophies, etc. I can't select myself. So that's something I made peace with. Whatever coaches didn't prefer my style of play or whatever the reasons was.
Who was the coach then?
There were so many coaches that came in and left.
Keep on changing. Shakes
Mashaba, I played under him. Gordon Ingerson, Stuart Baxter, Coach Pizzo Mosimane at one stage was the coach. Joel Santana.
They chopped and changed.
Chopped and So yeah, that was part of it. But that part for me is not a part that I didn't achieve as much as I would have liked to in that international space regarding Bafana. But I think my saving grace was then going on and continuing to win so many more trophies wherever I used to go to. And I could only control that, But I've made peace with it and absolutely no regrets from my side. Could have been different. I could have been in the World Cup squad. A lot of ifs and buts, but I made peace with it then and there and just kept moving on.
I haven't made peace because we haven't won the African Cup of Nations Cup since 1996.
Yeah.
I was here in 1996 when we played, I think it was at Senegal or something like that. At the stadium.
Erasmus Stadium.
Erasmus Stadium, I was there. And I'm asking myself, what is it? Is it our football? Or is it the atmosphere when you move out of South Africa? And are we homebound winners and we are outbound chokers? What could be the problem?
I think it was everything happened fast. we got back into international football, and all of a sudden qualified for the 1998 World Cup in France. So the period of 94 to 98 to 2002, I think everything happened so fast because there was a lot of change happening in the country and a lot of the downfall. If I can say what the downfall is, it's the fact that so much money started coming into the game.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody wanted to be affiliated with the game. And then comes the takers of the game. And then certain things lack in certain ways. And I go back to
That eroded selflessness.
I go back to Bafana, and there's certain times in the under 23 camps, and we're talking about when things was growing steadily. And now we're not getting paid, there was issues with this and that. So much money, and guys, then what is happening? You're not running the thing properly. And that's where Bafana took the biggest knock. That's why football took the biggest knock. But since people like Dr. Patrice Motsepe came into the game then, and where Mamelodi Sundowns is now, and people like that coming in, those are the right people that's coming into the game, and then they improve the game, and then they improve the club, and now Sundowns, they've been unstoppable 8 titles in a year, and I understand why, and Bafana, since Sundowns is doing well, Bafana has been doing well. So we need your Chiefs, you need your Pirates, you need your Sundowns to do well, and they need to compete. And if you look at the log, when they're close to each other, there's more hype, there's more excitement, and football becomes better. Because generally they get probably most of the talent that they want, and that's a mark of the big teams. The Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, same like Pirates, Chiefs, Sundowns. They need all the best players to be part of their teams, and most of the best players comes from other teams. So there's a method. I mean, you look at SuperSport, for example, where I come from. So much winners came out of that system of academy. Besides us winning the leagues back then, while I was winning the leagues, the Ronald Williams was underneath us learning how we're doing this thing. And we can be proud because look at the levels he's reached. I'm absolutely very super proud of him, growing up in the same area as me, and the levels he's reached, club World Cup status. He was at the Ballon d'Or event. He invited as one of the best goalkeepers. So I think those moments are very, very good, and that's where the game should be. But I think there was a period where the game was going a bit too much to the left-hand side, and obviously administration and all of those type of things, which is always going to be issues. But for the most part, it's nice to see the Bafana's actually back into football since Coach Hugo Broos came in and took over, and things have improved steadily, and it's in a positive state. I mean, we're back into the World Cup qualifying, Nations Cup qualifying. We are showing our mettle. We didn't do that well in the previous Nations Cup, but you can see there's a process unfolding, and it's heading in the right direction. You're not always going to win everything, and not always going to come close and get into the final or actually win it, but as long as the journey goes and the stadiums are full for Bafana matches, and that's the most important thing, because there was a time when Bafana would play in empty stadiums. Now with the team playing well, the players doing well, for their clubs and for their country, everybody comes together, and it just improves tremendously, which is good to see.
I see Ronaldo. I see also James Milner. These guys have been playing soccer long. They've been long in the game.
Yeah.
In their 40s.
Yes.
Do you have any regrets that you retired early?
No. I retired probably mentally. I retired the year before I retired. So my last year I was at Chippa, playing at Chippa. I had 4 starts, but I checked out. I was 33, turning 34. I've had enough. I was more focused on my life after football and the transition that's coming up in my life, and how I'm going to navigate through that. So it was more a thing for me. It was, okay, if I step away now and I go through this transition, then 10 years from now, I'll be in a space that I want to be, of going through my development as a coach. And life after football is completely different to playing, and as a coach, it's different to being a player as well. Because as a player, you only look after yourself, you only worry about yourself and what you can contribute to the team. As a coach now, you're holistically responsible. So who comes early, who leaves late, who comes late to training? I could control that as a player. I don't want to be late to training. I want to be an hour before. Yeah. I want to leave last. So come in first, leave last. And as a coach, again, you need to be there before the first player. And I like observing how players arrive, because that gives me an idea how he's going to train. Sometimes I can see dragging his feet. I wonder something is wrong, might be wrong at home. Because I play the game, I know that everything is not always rosy. So you got to come from a place of understanding about each and every individual, and it's extroverts and it's introverts, and it's and to get people together like that, it's that's the biggest challenge, and not the tactics. It's about bringing people in a room together and saying we're heading in let's step in the right direction. And when things don't go our ways, let's still believe in each other. And there's probably a lack of that in the game, but the coach is getting fired left, right, and center at the moment.
You're busy at the moment with development
Yep.
of young talent.
Yes.
How challenging is that? You need more resources?
I think.
And then, you've just said it yourself that there's so much talent out there, the rough diamonds sitting there dormant. They're looking for eyes like yourselves to be picked up and throw them out of the abyss.
I think I have a better understanding with Coach Bruce. Firstly, talent identification is something that I think Coach Bruce July in the Eastern Cape is probably one of the best at it. He's always recommended a player. I want you to look at this player. Whenever he says, I want you to look at this player, I says, Coach, can we get him? Because if you're telling me about him, I know for sure you've never ever brought a player that doesn't have the attributes that he says they have. And that space at the moment, we've started the Dubai Football Club. Probably before COVID, we had a relationship with Bidvest. So we then started on the 15 team. We got kit from Bidvest, we got equipment from them. Those are the resources that we're talking about that's needed to start something. And we've grown really, really well. We have earmarked a facility. The municipality is really playing its part in that, in terms of making sure, because the facility is the most important thing that we need.
It is, yeah.
And every successful club, and I wish every club could have a facility, because if you go to Europe and you see all the football clubs and the facilities they have, and that's the reason why they get to produce the cream of the crop, talented players that ends up going to
unders.
They ended up
coming
going,
up,
they end up going to Real Madrid. They're going to Barcelona, and that's a conversation I had with Coach Pizzo as well in the development space. Is how do we produce talent for the Real Madrids and the Barcelonas? What formula are they using? What ways are they doing? What's the modern way? And you try and get into those trends and try and create it over here, because at the end of the day, it's about, we've got our own style of play though. We South African players. I'm very invested in what happens in the boys' life off the field more. If off the field things are fine, that boy is gonna be flourishing on the soccer field. But if there's problems on the other side, and that's probably, and you can't, the thing that I've accepted, you can't save everybody in the development space. So one at a time. The aim is always, can we produce the next player that's going to sign for Sundowns or for Chiefs or for Stellenbosch or for, Ubuntu in Cape Town. We've got relationships with all those people, and that's the level that we want these boys to attain. And we do Joburg tours, we play Pirates, Chiefs with the Dubai FC, and we're trying to expose them to that level, because ultimately that's the level they want to go into. And if they're not exposed to that level, they won't know what that level is about. So it's all about teaching them. I can speak the game the whole day, but actually showing them what you're talking about is probably the biggest thing in football development. And I went through development my whole life of football. So I think I've got a better understanding. And while I was going through it, I picked up a lot of things and learned a lot. And I can impart that knowledge now and obviously contribute to football development. But the biggest thing is we're going to have to build fields. We're going to have to make the business sustainable for us. So creating paddle courts, creating indoor soccer facility, creating a tutoring room, we can then develop that place into something that can help. It's close to Keiga, the area, Bridgemead. It's close to Keiga, and we really want to make a difference in that area there. If we can infiltrate Keiga, for example, that's a township that wasn't there back in the day, but it's grown. So I drove past there the other day, and there's untapped talent in there, because
there's hunger to play sport.
I know for sure that there's talent there, because I had one boy playing in my disky setup, and they called him Messi. He could run past everybody with the ball at his left foot. So those are the people that I'm engaging in and saying, listen, we want the 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds to come over here. It's not far from them, and that's what we're trying to build over there. And I can then give those boys extra, probably foundation training, if you can call it, ball mastery. If you can call it ball mastery,
control,
because that talent that they have, that we see, they pick it up in the street.
They do.
They pick it up in the
It's-
street
it's-
football,
it's-
you know,
it's
and
natural.
the teams they play for, they
Yeah,
someone's
yeah.
father coaching, or the guy that stays on the opposite the field that's coaching, and the passion he has for coaching, but the actual knowledge of the different stages of development becomes two different things. And I think that's where we come in, and we want to alleviate that. You know, so if we get the grassroots right, we can then produce much more football for the PSL, and eventually have a team in PE that belongs.
Yeah. To fulfill your dream, also there's a stream of individuals with their children desperate to send their children to academies in Spain and everybody else. What advice can you give? Because only yesterday I was approached by another gentleman because he knows me.
Yeah.
Hey, Zola, you know, I've got my son and I have to spend 60,000 rands for him to come to Spain.
Yeah.
But if they have a fertile platform,
Yes.
the one you have, the nursery you have,
Yeah.
how prudent is it for them to send their children to Spain? And then when you find out the football in Spain is not compatible with the football in South Africa,
Yes.
what advice can you give them?
It's a topic that I said taking a child there, and there's a lot of these packages.
Yeah.
I can go Real Madrid, marketing or whatever the case may be, and organize a trip, and it's costly. It's very, very costly, and it's experience. For those that can afford it, it's an experience. I would probably liken it to all expenses paid holiday.
Okay.
But now the problem is that the funding of that then becomes, it's huge, 60,000 rand, who has the most talented players, 9 times out of 10, comes from underprivileged areas.
Yeah.
Especially in football. Maybe in rugby, soccer, rugby and cricket a bit different, but in football, 9 out of 10, it's underprivileged. So the one that can afford it, okay. The others that can afford it is probably not as talented as these ones. So it's an experience, but it's something that I don't want to be involved in. It's something that I am not going to encourage. I'm not going to send Alex on that thing because I know it's an excursion, basically. Okay. It's not a platform where my son can sign for Real Madrid or my son is going to be signed by. It's a trip that's paid for, the accommodation is there, the training is there, it's very legitimate. But I just think that 60,000 for underprivileged player, the best player in any club, is probably the one that doesn't have food at home every day. For example, that's the kind of thinking that I have in this. So I don't really want to. I won't encourage anybody. I don't want to discourage anybody either. But it's something that I won't do. I won't send my kids. Or basically, I won't send my kids. And the reason thereof is it's. Do you want to go for an excursion, or is it a platform for talent identification, or is there possibility?
What opportunities are there for my
Is
child?
Is there return on investment?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And for the moment, the return on investment is the experience
Yeah.
that otherwise would never have happened. You know, but now the means to get there and what people put themselves through is the gripe I have with people. So people will go and make loans, and when you should be rather focusing on education, paying school fees. You know, that's just my take on this whole trips, and they're all over the place, and a lot of scams around as well. So again, it comes to me saying there's not enough servants of the game and too many takers, and that's part of the reason.
Yes. Same with this school of or academies in our country. Quite a number of them, just mushrooming all over, and enticing these young boys, and then putting Orlando Pirates' name in Rugby Sharks.
Yes,
And then
across the board of sport
all
at the
over.
moment. Yeah, it's
And then when they go there, you find out it's you, parent, you have to pay.
correct.
99% of that, the cost, they'll come from you.
That's
How can we, because you are involved in that.
yes. I was fortunate enough to go through. I mean, our trips was paid for under 40, under 12. Simba, for example, Simba was the sponsor. You go to Johannesburg at 10 years old. I traveled Eastern Province under 12 team. The bus is booked by the LF Safa, for example. Accommodation is booked. Transnet is sponsoring the whole tournament. Simba sponsoring the whole tour. We're staying at the Technicon. So in this day and age, how things were how money was poured back into sports was different. So the more money came, the more problems arise. And now all of a sudden people start paying for these trips. When I'm saying in 1995, how is it possible in 1995 that I would travel with 200 rand pocket money?
Yeah. No,
Because I don't have to pay for hotel.
no
I don't
growing
have to,
pains.
because the money that's meant for that development is actually being used for that development.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so that's what I'm saying. And those tournaments are no more. So
Cricket, they
you
had
ask
Bakers.
yourself, yeah.
Cricket, they had Bakers, mini cricket.
KFC is into that now.
KFC,
Again, it's been
yeah.
rekindled. KFC
Yeah.
has done fantastic. I've kept an eye on that as well. I come from that system, Baker's mini cricket system. I know how fruitful that is.
It was very fruitful.
That is the foundation of cricket. You know,
Yes.
tap and run. You know, everybody bowls,
We
everybody
started
bats.
a nursery at Dan Cricket Stadium.
Unbelievable. You know, I was at Daine Cricket Stadium probably in 1995 as well when Brian Lara was here
Yeah.
doing a net session. You know, so again, those we don't see those things anymore. How did those people come back in the day?
Yeah.
Of course, there's money involved, there's flights, there's accommodation, but there was money. So for me, the biggest thing is parents have to spend so much money now in order for their child to get an opportunity to even be spotted. Where there should be channels that's created in academies, and there's no academy in PE, for example. We can't make you buy FC an academy because you don't have a facility. So once that facility comes up and we then qualify as an academy, we will then change the name to academy because there's certain boxes you need to tick in order for you to be an academy. If you have a professional setup, if you have a PSL team, automatically that's an academy because of your status as PSL. But if you don't have as PSL, there's certain boxes you need to tick to become an academy. And until such a time when we tick all the boxes, then we will call ourselves an academy. Because too many PSL teams, 10 professional teams, you go into the first division, they all got a roof. So there's a roof.
Ceiling.
They started building from the top, not from the foundation, and we're trying to build from the foundation to the top. Then if anything collapses, then it collapses onto a solid foundation always. And we can always rekindle things and bounce back, but there's a method to everything. You know, and development is working in stages. You know, until such a time we have the right thing, the right training, the right amount of training. If you have your own facility, you can train up to 4 times, because that's the first thing they say. You can't train twice a week. It's not enough. The team's training is never ever enough. You got to do your own thing. But if we can then say 4 sessions, that's 2 extra sessions or 3 extra sessions or whatever the case may be. And transport becomes an issue because these boys stay in different areas. So the whole thing is, can we get them to come from school with transport, drop them off, tutor waiting for them, they finish their school homework, 4:30, they're into soccer training, 6 o'clock they get home, their homework is done, they get to spend time with the family at the supper table, and that's what we're trying to instill and teach these boys into those values.
Teaching these boys values, would you say your dream is alive? You are living your dream at the moment.
100%.
You are paying back also to your community, selflessly, like Toto did when you're still young.
Yeah,
Would you
yes.
say
Yeah.
that's what's happening with you now? And if you look at the landscape, you know, man, now at the moment you're saying it yourself, there's too much money, but few selfless people and less development and no facilities.
Yeah.
These are anomalies.
I was watching Saturday, I was watching my old team, Glenville, playing Van Vogel. The field is, not to speak down on it, but it's accident waiting to happen. They shouldn't allow football on that field because somebody's going to hurt his knee, his ankle, and then he's going to not have medical aid, and then it's going to be Livingston, and then you're going to go on the waiting list, and you're going to be 3 months to get an operation, and then you're out of the game for 2 years. And if you got out of the game for 2 years, what are the odds of you becoming a professional footballer if you've been injured because of a facility not being kept properly and the lack of facilities? Because when I just don't understand how it was possible that the field was okay back then. I mean, whatever we did back then, can't we do the same thing with the fields and looking after the fields? You know, so again, it's
You played at Moerdijk.
the dike is standing for 3 years. I'm so sad about that also. The night tournament is no more. There's people fighting there for the tender, and that's where we are. There's no facilities, people fighting. That place is stood there for 3 years, inactive. Cricket pitches there, new cricket facility, new stadium, everything's just complete standstill. Big lights up there. The place is beautiful, but the grass is this long now.
Fighting
Because
over
there's-
tenders. 30%.
Those children must walk down to the Adcock facility, and at night it's dangerous.
Very much so.
It's not the same like back then. They get robbed. They get, how can you let the under 10 boy walk from the top of Shoulder where is the dike? He lives the opposite of the dike, but he must walk all the way down to the Adcock. And those are things that needs to change in the communities, and I'm hoping that it comes alive, but people need to put their own needs aside. That's what I'm saying. Too much takers in the game, too little servants left. Because if the servants was around, those type of things wouldn't happen. It's an upgrade of the dike. Then rather don't do the upgrade and leave the place as is and just let the kids continue playing football on that. But yeah, that's where we are.
Wow. When you look at yourself, the journey you have traveled, I know it's not been easy. You've just put that narrative clear. Do you have any regrets and say that this is what I missed? This is what I was supposed to have done? And, take yourself back to your early days at higher primary. I'll leave lower primary, go to higher primary and high school, and subsequently, playing professional football.
Yes.
There were moments you say, I wish I should have done this better.
I generally don't. I think obviously the Bafana thing, but that's a story on its own. That was out of my control completely. And then you get obviously wanting to play in Europe. That was also one of the things that I won't say I regret, but one of the things I would have liked to do. But I think I'm still going to have an opportunity as a coach to, if I really want to, because I'm following UEFA. I'm doing my UEFA coaching badge, coaching license, and those licenses are recognized globally. So if you have a global license, your chance of actually going there and coaching there is good. And I've got people that I'll probably go and do excursions with them and interns at the academies and see what they are doing. And like the Ajax Amsterdam, I would love to go. And those people are always so willing to, when you want to come and experience their facilities for a week and how they operate and run their clubs, and you learn on that level, and you come back and you get this Bridgemead facility up and running, and you start using what the methods they use over there in terms of sustaining their own facilities. So that's important for me, and no regrets. I don't think there's any regrets. Like I said, if you asked me 20 years ago if I'll win 6 league titles with 3 different teams, I would have said you're joking. So I think I've exceeded my own expectations, and one can look back now after I've retired, and that's why I retired. I think I was content. I think I was fulfilled with my playing days, and I gave it my all, and I achieved as much as I can. And I can be thankful for it, and that's just how I am. Just no regrets whatsoever. If anything, that's not regrets. There's disappointments along the way, and ambitions won't always be reached. But I think if I'll be happy if I have 10 things I want and I get 7 or 8 back. I'd say I've won more than what I've lost.
I see there are quite a number of coaches. Peter Mutsimane was one who opened the footpath into Africa.
Yes.
And did well.
He was serious, because Peter was serious about
Mokwane,
it.
and then there's there's another one.
Steve Barker went
Steve
to
Barker
Tanzania
went to
now.
Tanzania.
Yeah.
You have Benny McCarthy.
Yes,
also.
in Kenya.
Do you think about that sometimes?
Yeah, that is where
They say charity begins at home.
There's Lisa Benjamin. She's
Yes.
from PE. She's in Congo actually. She's the physical trainer. She's one of the best physical trainers I've worked with. That's one person that I would love to have in my team one day as a head coach. Because she's that brilliant, and there is life outside. Let's call it that. And we are seeing it happening in Morocco. I mean, Coach Rolani is there. Fadlu Davids is also up there, up north. Tanzania, there with Steve Barker. We've got our players. Some of our players are playing there. Rushin de Rijk is playing for Coach Steve Barker's team. He's the captain over there. So I think the game has grown a lot. Because Pizzo I experienced it with him at the beginning. It has improved in Africa over time. The accommodation has improved, the fields have improved, because most of them have astroturfs.
And the wars have died down.
The wars have died down, and it's sad to see, you go into places like that and you understand it. You're in that country and they don't have what they have because they've been colonized, and the resources have been stripped of them, and And I look at the world right now and what's happening as well. It's absolutely terrible that how everything the Bible says is happening is gonna happen. Wrong leaders will lead nations. Wars will be started over the wrong things, etc. So, yeah, that's where the world is at the moment. But yeah, see the world. Don't let the world see you. That's my philosophy. I would go and coach in Egypt. I've experienced it all, and the rewards to coach there and the amount of difficulty and the passion that people have there is another. We think we have passion over here. You go to other countries, some people have more passion than us when it comes to the
Absolutely.
seriousness of football.
Having achieved so much, right? And with such wisdom and experience you have, and talent, undoubtedly. Are you expecting any book in due course?
I was invited to Benny McCarthy's launch last week, and I'm so happy to see that. Definitely something I want to do. I think there's lessons that can be shared on that level. I'm talking about the level of schools. So comprehension is probably one of the things, or let's call it practical life
Yeah,
in today. So why not have Benny McCarthy's book, for example, as practical life, one of the subjects, whether it be grade 11, grade 12, because that's ultimately where you're going to in life. You can study, you can memorize things, and go write an exam and pass that exam with 90%, and obviously end up in university. But once you're done with university, they want experience.
They do.
They want 4 years experience. Where are you going to get 4 years experience when you had 5 years in university? So the practical life side of things, obviously, lessons can be learned from those type of books. Take Modishe's book as well. What you did wrong, what works, what doesn't work. So you pick up the book, you read it, and you try and put yourself in that situation. And of course, the documentary is also something that I'd like to pursue. I've had a couple of people speaking about it, ideas, but certain ideas take time sometimes. But there is vision and there is things I would like to put into place and like to do. And yeah, the journey it's a very, very long journey, and hopefully it becomes fruitful at some point or another, because it's about leaving a legacy.
It's my singular honor and
Thank you.
privilege to have been your host
It's
today.
been an honor to be in your company. Thank
Sharing the life, time, experiences you have had, and the incredible achievements you have had. It's always a pleasure speaking to legends like yourself.
Thank you.
I'll give you the honors now, just to
Sign the ball.
sign the ball and sign the flag.
Okay.
You can move that bottle away from there. Yeah, so that can have a nice way of doing it. Thank you. And then the flag.
I'll just show that's where I signed.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. All right, and the flag. Let me just move this.
Flag. You can sign anywhere, even the white side. That's fine. Dan Klate, much obliged.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.